Yo, 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 what's good? This is Craig Shapiro from the Craig Shapiro Tennis Podcast, and you are listening to the Brothers on Tennis.
Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? This is your boy Isaac.
And this is your boy Bryce.
And we are Brothers on Tennis. And guess what, folks? We are coming at you with another comparison, folks. We got two of the greats of tennis. We're going to talk about their backgrounds. We're going to put them in the corners, and we're going to let them come out and box it out, y'all. Box it out. Bryce, what about it, man? What about it? We got some bangers today, man.
We do. We have Andre Agassi versus Ivan Lendl. And if you've listened to us for any period of time, you know that these are two of our favorites. Probably, right behind Roger Federer, at least for me, Isaac.
Mm-hmm.
Agassi and Lendl are my 2 and 3. And their careers, in terms of the level of success that they both had, it's very close. I didn't really recognize how close a lot of their numbers were until I started looking at them. But no matter how this comes out, I have major love for both of these guys.
Yeah. And for me, folks, I mean, Bryce definitely has been in the tennis game a bit longer than I have. So he watched Lendl and definitely followed him and was a big fan of his. I came on a little bit later, as you all probably know, in the 90s. So Andre was my dude until Federer, of course, came. So I know I know a lot more about Andre's career. But funny enough, in preparing for this episode, I was able to really look at those stats for Lendl. And like you said, Bryce, it's crazy how very, very close from a statistical standpoint these two players are. I mean, both of them greats. Both of them incredible.
Yeah, definitely. Now, they didn't exactly play in the same time period. Right. Their playing days overlapped a bit. So Lendl is about 10 years older than Andre Agassi. And so he went pro in 1978 and Agassi went pro in 1986. And so there's about, I think, 6 years there that they overlapped and they played each other. And they played 8 times head to head. But I think, I don't know that you can really take anything away from the scores or their head to head matchups, because it's 6-2 in Lendl's favor, but that's because Lendl won the first 6 and Agassi won the last 2. And that makes a lot of sense in terms of how their careers overlapped. So when Agassi first came on board, Lendl was doing his thing. And so he kind of took care of Agassi. And I shouldn't be casual like that, because if you look at their matches, there were several of them that went 3 sets.
Yeah.
But, then toward the end, when Lendl was kind of going down a bit, Agassi took those last couple. So I don't know that there's a whole lot that you can glean from that 6-2 because they really didn't play each other at the heights of both of their careers.
Right. And it kind of speaks to some of the some of the other, I won't say rivalries, but some of the grades, how some are going out of the game as certain ones are coming in. So you don't really get that true, comparison, if you will, as it relates to how would they have matched up when both of them were in their prime. So that, unfortunately, we won't see for these two. But Lendl at least goes out and he's like, yeah, I beat him down 6 times. So there you go.
And then there are other things that you can't really compare because there were different times. I mean, if you look at, for example, the career prize money, You'll see that Lendl won about $21 million and Agassi won $31 million. Well, when Agassi came aboard, Agassi, they were paying more than they were when Lendl played. So, and you'll see that across the board. You look at how much Martina Navratilova won.
Yep. But
in terms of matches and tournaments, but when you look at the dollar amount, it doesn't compare to what the ladies are winning now. But, and I know we'll probably talk about this at some other point, but Agassi probably made the majority of his money off the tennis court.
Exactly. Yeah, that's where Agassi really, really shined, was off of the tennis court. That impact it's been ridiculous, man. So, yeah. Did you want to start off in any category, Bryce, or you want to just kind of talk about the two of them as we're doing?
Well, let's start off with the single statistics. And just to remind everyone before we get started, we're talking about two of the greats in the game.
Yes.
They are both members of the Hall of Fame. Lendl was inducted in 2001. Agassi was inducted in 2011.
Yep.
And so let's start talking about their stats. Do you want to go first with Agassi for singles?
Yeah. So, I mean, from a single standpoint, I mean, his winning percentage was 76%. And that, to me, is just so awesome and so impressive. 870 match wins versus 274 losses. I mean, 76%, that's pretty darn good, folks. Pretty darn good. But on the other side of the coin, Lendl was like, I ain't impressed with that.
Yeah, Lendl won 81% of his matches.
Crazy.
And here's a crazy stat. Lendl is the only player that in 5 different years, his winning percentage was greater than 90%.
Amazing.
I mean, if that isn't dominance, I don't know what is.
I'm trying to tell you, man. He did his thing, man. He definitely did his thing. And Andre, he came up, he had 60 career titles that he earned, and he was number 1 for, I believe, 101 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yep.
You got to give love to that stat. But again, yeah.
Mm-hmm. you do. And those 60 titles really, represent the 10th best for a male in tennis. But Lendl, he won 94. And he's third best, only behind Jimmy Connors and Roger Federer. Please let Roger Federer overtake Jimmy Connors.
Right?
Somebody's going to be like, why don't you like Jimmy Connors? And all I'm going to say is, Arthur Ashe didn't like Jimmy Connors, so I'm going to leave that right there. Okay. I don't know how you feel about Arthur Ashe, but, anyway.
Enough said.
But in comparison to Agassi's 101 weeks at number 1, which is amazing, Lendl was number 1 for 270
Good
weeks.
Lord. So that's almost 3 times as long. That's insane.
And to put a cherry on top of that, Lendl ended the year number 1 4 times.
Nice.
And Agassi was only able to accomplish that once.
One time. Yeah, he was fighting with Pete, trying to get Pete off that daggone throne. Good Lord.
Right.
We won't. Yeah, I was about to say I ain't gonna give Pete no shine on this one though.
But you know what, Isaac? That's a good point, because to me, one of the differences between Lendl and Agassi is that Lendl won the rivalry with his chief rival,
right?
Who was McEnroe.
Yep.
And I think he was 21-15,
mm-hmm.
whereas Agassi's chief rival, who was Pete Sampras, he was 14-20.
Right. Yeah, he was taking a good number of L's, but I mean, at least a little more balanced, at least than what we're seeing from Rafa and Federer. But
now, but wait a minute.
I know. Yep.
Federer has won 7 of the last 8.
That's right. Yes, he has. He got that backhand right. That Lubitsch's backhand. Come on,
right?
Now.
Yeah. So Nadal needs to tighten his game up.
Exactly. Yo, man, but Grand Slam wise. Now, this is where things begin to get a little bit interesting, because both of them have 8 Grand Slam tournament wins. And, it's from that standpoint, you look at them and you're like, hey, they got the same number. But there's a lot of differences if you're really looking at those numbers, because first and foremost, Agassi, apparently, he had his most popular and or favorite slam, if you will, from a results standpoint, was the Australian Open. And Bryce, what's crazy to me is, in my research, I found out that Agassi actually didn't even play the Australian Open the first 8 years of his career. That's ridiculous, dude. It's like the slam that you do the best in, and you didn't even play it for the first 8 years. How could these numbers have? How could this have impacted his numbers, in your opinion?
I'm sorry to kind of jump off of the Agassi Lendl thing, but that very point, for our listeners right now in the tennis world, the four majors, the Australian Open, the French Open, Wimbledon, the U.S. Open, you basically don't miss those tournaments unless you are injured. Right. And you can't play. I mean, if you only play 4 tournaments a year, those are the 4 tournaments you play. And back in the day, it didn't used to be like that. And it became very clear to me recently when I was listening to an interview with Martina Navratilova.
Right.
And she was talking about the number of years that she and Chris Evert didn't play the French Open nor the Australian Open. Wow. She said I think Martina said there was maybe 10 years she didn't play the Australian Open. So wow. when we look at statistics like, okay, Steffi Graf has 22 or Serena has 23, yep. When you look at Chris and Martina sitting on 18 and you think they skipped probably with the French Open and the Australian Open combined 14, 15, 16 Grand Slam appearances?
Wow. Insane. It's
kind of hard.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying it's kind of hard to compare.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they could have been hovering right around that 30 mark if you think about it. I mean, especially with Chrissy, I'm not the biggest fan, but on clay, she wasn't no joke.
Exactly. And going back to Agassi, we all know that the first Grand Slam he won was Wimbledon, and that was another one that he didn't play consistently in the beginning.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Do you know the number? How many times he skipped Wimbledon?
I don't remember.
Yeah, but just the fact that, again, 8 Australians that he didn't play, he skipped a few Wimbledons. I mean, his Grand Slam tally could be so much different. So the fact that he did get 8 is in my opinion, pretty darn incredible. And like I said, and as far as Ivan went, his 8 are as equally impressive as well.
Yeah, Ivan did some very special things in the Grand Slams. One of the records that he has that I don't know if this will ever be broken is that he made it to 8 U.S. Open finals in a row.
Wow.
Rafa has not even done that at the French.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you think about that, what it takes for 8 years in a row just to make it to the finals is incredible. But, he won the French Open 3 times, the U.S. Open 3 times, the Australian Open twice, but he never was able to win Wimbledon. Although he made it to the finals twice, right. He lost to Becker in 86 and he lost to Pat Cash in 87. And then the next 2 years, he made it to the semifinals where he lost to Becker both times. Now, as you remember, Becker was the beast at Wimbledon during that time. But for somebody who initially was very uncomfortable on grass, like they always say, if you make it to the semifinals of a major, you have the game to win it.
That's right.
It's other factors that kick in at that point.
Right.
And so this is one of the areas where I do give Andre an edge because Andre was able to at least win each one of the majors at least once. So he has a career Grand Slam where Lendl has kind of that hole there with Wimbledon. Mm-hmm. Also, something that, just to give Agassi his props, Agassi in Grand Slam finals was 8 and 7.
Right.
So 53%. So if you say he gets to a Grand Slam final, he has a 50-50 chance of winning it. Mm-hmm. Lendl was 8 and 11. And so that put him at 42%. So he did not perform quite as well. I know that both of these players were kind of labeled as chokers initially because they lost their first 3 Grand Slam finals, and they were finals where really they were favored to win. But we know once they got that train rolling.
Right, they got right quick. That's right. Yeah, man. And I mean, another really interesting point to make is the fact that, Andre does have a gold medal. I don't believe the Olympics at that point in time. I'm not sure that Ivan even played the Olympics, right? I mean, they weren't, or were they around when he was finishing up his career?
Yeah, so he had an opportunity. Well, the year that he would have really played the Olympics would have been 1988.
Right.
But unfortunately, and listeners, if you're not aware, Ivan Lendl is originally from Czechoslovakia, and although he's an American now, he was not an American when the Olympics were going on. So in 1988, he refused to play for Czechoslovakia because he had really kind of separated himself from the country, and he had not yet become an American, so he couldn't play for the U.S. So he ended up not playing. So that would have been his real opportunity to play. In 1992, the Olympics rolled around again, but that's when Lendl started having those back issues. Mm-hmm. So he really didn't have an opportunity to play then either. But yeah, Agassi did get that gold in singles in 1996, and that was huge.
Right. And what's interesting, Bryson, I don't know how you want to categorize this. Some may see it as a positive, some may see it as a negative. I don't know. But when you look at the span of Grand Slams, it's like Lendl won his in a pretty nice little cluster. It was like a 6-year window where he did his Grand Slam tournament run. Whereas with Agassi, his span was almost double that, bro. He was 11 years between the start and the finish of him winning a Grand Slam tournament. So it goes to, like you were talking about, how Andre sort of had a dual career, or a second career, if you will.
Right, yeah. I mean, and I think that's one of the key differences between the two. I mean, we often hear about, is it a person's talent or is it a person's work ethic? And I think, I don't think there's any question that Agassi was probably the more naturally gifted tennis player of the two. Mm-hmm. He's the one who could show up in jeans and,
right.
and beat the best players in the world. And Lendl was the example of work ethic and dedication and being very driven and consistent and disciplined. And so I think, because Lendl had that type of focus, when he got on, he was on. And he was like a bulldozer, and he just went through people. Agassi, he would come, he'd win, he'd leave, he'd go smoke crystal meth, he'd come back,
Right.
I mean, and I've said this before. Agassi really saved his legacy when he came back.
Yes.
Because when he left and got on the pipe, if he had never come back and played again, I think he would have been viewed as a huge underachiever. All this talent, more flash than substance.
Yep.
But that's why a career is a career. It's not about how you start. It isn't about how you're doing in the middle. It's about how you finish.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. I remember that match where I guess he was playing old crusty Jimmy Connors, and that person in the crowd yelled out, he's a punk, you're a legend. And I know Andre's like, who's the punk now? Get off me.
Right.
Get off me. Look at my stats.
and I tell you what, one of my favorite Ivan Lendl Jimmy Connors stats is the day that he gave him 2 bagels.
Right.
So go put some cream cheese on that. Okay, we're not. This is not about Jimmy Connors. We're not going to get on that tangent.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And Bryce, do we want to talk about the Super Slam?
Well, and before we get to that,
go ahead.
So let's talk about the year-end championship.
Yes, that's right.
So this would be another area where Lendl kind of had the edge.
Yes.
Agassi was able to win the year-end championships in 1990, which was great. Lendl won it 5 times.
Yes, he did.
And so, and that probably matches with the 4 times that he ended the year number 1.
Right.
But yes, let's have this talk about the career Super Slam.
Yeah, which you and I both, we saw that stat and we were talking about it, and it's pretty interesting that Andre Agassi is literally the only person at this point in time to have what they are calling the Super Slam, and that's having won all 4 Grand Slams, an Olympic gold medal, as well as the urine championships. I honestly, like I said, when I was reading it, I instantly went to Djokovic because I was like, I think Djokovic has all of those, but he actually does it. He does not. No, he don't go no gold. He needs some gold.
Right. He's actually just like Roger.
Yep, exactly. Exactly.
They're both missing the Olympic gold medal in singles.
Right.
Although, Roger at least has a gold in doubles.
That's right.
But we're talking about singles.
Right.
And then Nadal has never won the year-end championship.
Which is so crazy to me. But at the same time, I guess it's not because it's indoors. It's very fast courts, low balancing. Right. So, yeah, they can get up on him pretty good on that one.
Right. So no, that's an amazing thing. So next year, if Djokovic or Federer ends up winning the gold in the Olympic singles, they will be the second person.
And that's something.
To have the career Super Slam.
Career Super Slam. That's awesome, man. Crazy. Go ahead, Andre.
Now, and then, something else, this is kind of going back, still talking about the Olympics kind of. This was something where Lendl, once again, because of being in between Czechoslovakia and the United States, he was unable to play the years of Davis Cup that Andre Agassi did. And Agassi was a part of 3 winning years, 1990, 1992, and 1995. Lendl only won the Davis Cup in 1980 when he was associated still with Czechoslovakia. Very soon after that, he wasn't playing for Czechoslovakia under any circumstance. Right. And he did not become an American citizen. It was either like late 87 or mid 88 or something like that. And then at that point, I think Isaac, you and I were talking earlier, I don't even know that he would have been picked for many Davis Cup teams kind of after that, because at that point, now you started to look at this new crop of like Sampras and Courier and Chang and Agassi and all of them.
Yeah, exactly. But he did get one, so hey,
he did get one, right?
Check that box,
right? And I know we've been talking this whole time about singles, but I do want to call out that Lendl did win 6 doubles titles and was even ranked as high as number 20 in 1986.
Yeah, Andre
in doubles.
Yeah, Andre wasn't about that doubles life.
He was not.
Although he's got one, he does have one title, and but yeah, the ranking wise, that was about the same spot where he was in singles when he was off smoking that crystal meth.
Right. Exactly. So, I think, Isaac, we're actually in agreement that if you just look at their singles playing days, that Lendl probably had the slightly greater career.
Yes, absolutely. And no question, actually. I think he does. I mean, again, I say no question, but the only thing that you can really kind of hold a light to for Agassi is, again, the fact that he did win all 4 Grand Slams, and he's got that career Super Slam. So those, to me, are those 2 highlights that Andre has over Ivan. But in every other category, Ivan is like, Agassi, you better get off me. Right. I will smack you down.
So let's talk about, some of the things they've done post playing days. And I think with Lendl, as it relates to the game of tennis, his greatest achievements have come actually in coaching. He has really done some great things with 2 major players you may have heard of. The first one is Andy Murray.
Yes.
So, he really changed Andy's career.
Oh, yeah.
Because during the period of the Big 3, he was able to help Andy Murray win 2 Wimbledons. And we know broke that huge drought of Wimbledon having a British men's champion.
Right.
He coached Andy to have 1 U.S. Open title.
Mm-hmm.
He coached Andy to getting that's where his gold Olympic singles medal
there you
is.
Go. Yep, that's right.
He coached him to number one in the world over the big three.
That's right.
And the other person he coached was Alexander Zverev. He had to get away from that when he said he couldn't get that serve in. But he did get both Murray and Zverev to both win the year-end championships.
That's very true. Yep, that's right. That's right. Yeah, he's been putting it down as it relates to coaching because, again, it goes back to what you were saying about his discipline. I mean, he that's what he built. That's what his foundation was built on, was discipline and not necessarily having the raw talent, but again, putting in the work to make the results happen. And I think that that's what he's translated to his pupils, at least with Andy Murray. I just think Sasha's a little hard-headed. But with Andy Murray, he did the dang thing with Andy, for sure.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. And I mean, just, and on the Andre tip, of course, he doesn't have the coaching chops, but boy, oh boy, has Andre done some things from a philanthropic standpoint. I mean, the money that he has raised for the at-risk kids in the Vegas area. I mean, in upwards of $60 million that he has. I mean, that just staggering numbers, Bryce. I mean, what he has done through that academy and that foundation is just. It's incredible work. I mean, it's life-changing, which is what he has done to many upon many of lives that have gone through the Andre Agassi Academy. So just amazing, bro.
You got to respect that. And then something else that you can't forget about with Agassi is he helped usher in a whole new crowd into tennis.
Right. Yep. When
he came on the scene with his whole look and the kind of rock and roll tennis that he was playing.
Right.
Honestly, he is still probably one of the most popular men to have ever played the game in terms of traveling the world. I mean, Roger and, Rafa are probably up there, but Agassi is probably right behind them.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I would say he held that mantle until both Federer and Nadal kind of jumped on the scene and their popularity grew. And, what Roger's doing with South Africa, what Nadal's doing with his academy. But, yeah, Andre's right there. I mean, I would be interested just to see the numbers, just to see how much each of them has raised. Because, in truth, I don't know. I think Andre might still potentially be at the top of that list. I'm not sure, bro.
Right, and then he got that whole Steffi Graf reinforcement at the crib.
Exactly, Steffi, I got your back. I got your back, bro. I got you.
Exactly. Well, I tell you what, this was a lot of fun, and like we said from the very beginning, these are two guys that we love and admire, and are two of our absolute favorites, and it just. Even as well as we know them, it was kind of eye-opening to see how close some of these statistics were between the two of them. Any final words from you, Isaac?
No, man, just echoing what you said. It was so much fun to just kind of go back through and relive a lot of those stats. And just I was on YouTube, of course, watching a few things here and there. So just good seeing both of them playing again. And yeah, man, it gives me motivation. I want to get back out in the courts and play now.
I know. Tell me about it. Well, to our listeners, we are going to continue trying to bring you some content. We know that the country is opening up and people are starting to get out a little bit. But we're going to still give you some stuff to listen to if you want to stay at home. Or if you're on the road, you can listen to us on the road as well. So we'll be coming with a new episode next week. So make sure you keep your ears out and open for that. Until then, this is your boy Bryce.
And this is your boy Isaac.
And we are Brothers on Tennis. Take care, and we'll talk to you next week.